Well, hey there, kids, and welcome to another episode of Virtual Sunday School. I'm so excited that you could be here today with us to learn a very special lesson. And this lesson today is actually kind of a continuation of what we learned about last week, because if you guys remember, we learned about a special prophet. Do you remember what his name was? His name was Elisha. That's right. So Elisha was doing some pretty cool stuff in the Bible when we learned about him the past couple of weeks. Well, now he's going to do something even more amazing, because we are going to learn about a special person, and his name was Naaman. So, something important that you guys should know about Naaman is that he was a very important soldier. So he was a warrior and he fought lots of wars and everybody knew who he was. So he was kind of an important person. And what happened with Naaman is something very terrible happened. I don't know if we've ever talked about this before, but there was something in the Bible that people went through, and it was called leprosy. Now, what's leprosy? That sounds like kind of a funny word, but it was actually something very sad and serious, because it meant that people that had leprosy, they had sores all over their body. That means, when you get like a boo-boo on your elbow maybe after you were riding your bike and you fell down and you scratched it and you're like, ow, that really hurts. Well, leprosy is like that, but 10 times worse, because it was all over your body and sometimes it would bleed and it's very painful. So this man Naaman had leprosy and he was in a lot of pain all the time and he was very, very sick. So what happened was, in Naaman's house, because he was such an important person and he had probably like lots of money, he had a servant girl, and this girl was actually from Israel. She was taken from her home, which is kind of sad, but she was taken from her home and she was brought to Naaman's house to help them in the house and help them cook and clean and all that stuff, right? So you have to remember that Naaman in this story, he didn't believe in the God that we serve, but guess who did? This girl from Israel, she knew about God, and she also heard about, you guessed it was the prophet Elijah. Remember all the great things we heard about prophet Elijah that he did through God? Well, the servant girl, she knew about these things. So she knew that prophet Elijah believed in God that we serve and that he was capable of doing so many amazing things. So the servant girl said to Naaman, she said, well, actually she didn't say it to Naaman because she was a servant of Naaman's wife. So she said to Naaman's wife, hey, listen, I know about this prophet and he has done all sorts of miracle through the God that I serve. And so I know about your husband Naaman, and maybe I think he could use some help because he looks pretty miserable right now, right? And so the wife went to Naaman and she said, listen, the servant girl told us about this prophet. Maybe you should go see him. Maybe he can help you with your leprosy. So Naaman took all sorts of really important gifts like gold and silver and lots of clothing that was very expensive, because he said, okay, well, I'm going to see this guy that's maybe gonna heal me, help me be healed, so I gotta give him a lot of money because he must be really expensive, right? So Naaman traveled and he finally saw Elisha. So you can imagine, after a long day of traveling, Naaman is expecting to see Elisha and talk to him, maybe sit down, have some coffee, and they can talk about all their problems, right, that Naaman's having. No way. So Naaman went to Elisha's house and he knocked on the door and he said, hey, I'm Naaman. I don't know if you've heard of me, but I have leprosy and I was hoping that you could help. And guess what Elisha did? He sent a messenger to Naaman and telling him what to do. Well, Naaman was not very happy about this. He said, can you believe this guy? I traveled all the way here and I thought that maybe he would touch my head and like touch my leprosy and then maybe I'll be healed. But he didn't even see me. He sent a messenger. He said, this is ridiculous. I'm not wasting my time with this guy. And he started to leave. Well, the people, the servants that were with Naaman were like, listen, Naaman, listen. We heard about this guy too, and you traveled all the way here. You might as well just tell him to do whatever he told you to do. And Naaman said, did you hear what he told me to do? He told me to dip myself in the Jordan River 7 times. Dip yourself in the Jordan River 7 times? Well, that sounds kind of a strange thing to do to be healed, but if the prophet Elijah told you to do it, then he must be getting a message from God. So maybe you should do it. Well, Naaman had all sorts of excuses. He said, well, there's a better river over here and there's a better river over here. Why did he pick the Jordan River? That's kind of like commonplace or dirty place. I'm not going in there. But his officers and the servants that were with him, they convinced Naaman to do it. So Naaman said, okay, fine. I'll go to the Jordan River and I'll put myself in the river and I'm going to dip myself 7 times. So that's what Naaman did. He went to the Jordan River and he dipped himself. How many times was it? Not 1, not 2 times, not 3 times. How many times was it? 7 times. That's right. And you guys would not believe what happened. After Naaman came up out of the water, he was healed. And the Bible tells us he didn't just get his skin back to normal the way it was before. The Bible tells us his skin became like a newborn baby, like brand new skin. That's incredible, isn't it? But the best part of this story is that Naaman went back to Elisha and he finally talked to him and he showed him, look, your God has healed me. Look at my skin now. And Elisha was so happy for him. And the best part was Naaman told Elisha, he said, when I go home, I'm not going to serve any of the gods I was serving before because now I believe in your God, the God of Israel that you serve. And that was the best news that Elisha could ever hear. That now, because Naaman was healed, he believed in God. And that was a really important part of this story. But another point I want you guys to remember is there was someone very important before Naaman went to Elisha. Do you remember who that person was? It was probably someone around your age. The little girl, the servant girl in Naaman's house, right? His wife's servant. So we have to remember that even though she was young and it wasn't her home and she was in a foreign place at that time, she was far, far away from her home and she probably didn't know anybody. She only knew Naaman and his wife and stuff like that. But she was brave because she served the God of Israel and she knew that her master, Naaman, could be healed because of God. So she didn't have to share that with him because maybe she was a little scared of him and she was just a lowly person while her master was very important. But that did not matter. Even though she was young and she was in a strange place, she still believed that God could do a miracle in Naaman's life. And I want you guys to remember that no matter how big something might be or how scary it might be, and even though you might think you're too young to tell somebody that about Jesus or about God, that you're never too young and someone's life could be totally changed as long as you believe that Jesus is with you, okay? So I hope you guys remember that, and I hope you enjoy this lesson, and I hope everybody sends in their memory verse because I'm so excited to see you guys, and you're sending in your videos, and you're learning Psalms 27, and everyone's doing such a good job. So keep sending in your videos to Sarah Tutu. She loves watching them. I miss you guys. I'm praying for you, and I love you very much. I'll see you next week.